Hello guys, it's the Caribbean Bookworm, and today I wanted to do my first book haul, and what better way to do a first book haul than doing all the Stephen King books I just got, including the Dark Tower series. So, without further ado, here we go. The first book I got is It, and it is the first one I want to jump into as well as soon as I'm finished with all my school books. So It is a very huge novel for all of you who already has this book, and I really want to read it, especially since I really like the movie cover of this book. The second book I got is Pet Sematary. I got a used edition from thriftbooks.com, and it's supposedly, like it says on the back, one of the most frightening works of Stephen King. That sets a lot of high standards, and Stephen King has written some pretty weird and some pretty frightening things. But I heard a lot about Pet Sematary as well. I didn't want to see the old movie because I really want to read this book before getting into the movies. The next book I got is a very recent book of Stephen King, and it's Revival. I heard it's one of his best recent horror novels, and I got the Dutch version. So it's not in English, it's in Dutch, which I don't mind. I really want to read more Dutch, so hence why I intentionally bought it in Dutch. The next book is another huge one, and it's The Stand by Stephen King. I wanted to get the Dutch version of this one, but I thought that this one just deserves the English version a lot more. The Stand is a huge post-apocalyptic novel, and I got the uncut version. A lot of people recommended me to get the cut version because a lot of things are worth cutting in this book, but I wanted to get the full experience when I jump into this book, hence why the uncut version. Plus, I heard that there might be a chance that they are making this into a movie very soon, next year or something. So I want to read the book. Same with It. I want to read the book before they make another adaptation of said movie or a sequel. The next book is Everything's Eventual by Stephen King, and it's a collection of short stories by Stephen King. And first of all, I really like this cover. I like the artwork on the cover of this book. And plus, it's the book I'm going to read before getting into the Dark Tower series, because it has Little Sisters of Illyria as well, which is a short story right before The Gunslinger. So I'm a bit of a perfectionist, so I want to read that before jumping into the series officially. The next book is The Eyes of the Dragon, which is clearly a used version of it that I bought from thrift books as well. I actually lent this book to a friend of mine, and he read it in a weekend. He told me it was fantastic. And from what I heard from this book, it's like a parody of fantasy books, yet it also connects to the Dark Tower books. The next book is the one that I already did a review of, and I read it in one day, and that is Gwendy's Bottom Box. Also has some artwork in it, but overall I really like this cover, and I like the story. And I have the feeling that a lot of big things happen in Castle Rock, since it's also linked to other Stephen King novels. But I think this was a good introduction to Stephen King books, though I probably guess not his best work, but it's something that could get you started into it. It's not very dense, so that's very good. But the most recent Stephen King book that I got, and that is also used but very well treated, is Salems Lot by Stephen King, and it's his vampire novel of many fame and a lot of horror. Again, I heard that a main character from this book also links to the Dark Tower, so it's a very good motivation to read this book. And also, I like vampire stories, so I like myself a good vampire story, so I really don't mind reading this book. And the last but certainly not least is the Dark Tower series. Stephen King's magnum opus is the Dark Tower series, and instead of buying the books one by one, I decided to just get the full thing on box set on Amazon. I really like this box set despite it actually being broken. But it has all of the 8 Dark Tower books from The Gunslinger, Drawing of the Tree, The Wastelands. I think this one's The Wind Hole Through the Key or something like that. Wizard and Glass, which I heard is the best one. Wolves of the Kala, Song of Susanna, and The Dark Tower. And I read the first chapter, I think, from The Gunslinger. I heard it's not everyone's favorite, but I'm actually intrigued. I like the whole like depressing westernish dystopia type of like scenery. I mean, it may appeal to some people, it may not appeal to some people, but for me personally, it appeals to me since it reminds me a lot of like Cormac McCarthy type of writing. So I really don't mind it. I actually really want to get through and start reading The Gunslinger, but I can't because I have to read other books first. So that's it for the Stephen King book haul, guys, and I'm really looking forward to jump into this humongous universe that Stephen King created all by himself with some help on some other books. And more Stephen King books are to come on this pile, so this is not it. There's more to come, but one at a time.